Let's get started. We have three presenters, very exciting. And our first one is going to be Jill. So Jill Lord is the Director of Community Health at Mount Ascutney Hospital and Health Center. She has white hair, having been a nurse over 45 years, and a passion to promote the health and well-being of the community we serve. I don't know if anyone's ever mentioned their hair color in their bio, Jill, but that's a first, and I love it. So you can take it away. Thank you.
Okay. It's a privilege to be here today. And I was, you said one of your missions is to inspire, and I feel I already feel inspired by the way you're organized. And I do have to, before I know I've got to get going, but I do have to give a plug for Ginevra and her enthusiasm and how we work together in Veggie Van Gogh, and that is an inspiring event, and really does a lot of good. So I'm going to launch in. I'm not a technical person, but I'm going to believe that this is going to work, and I'm going to share my screen for my PowerPoint. And can you see it?
Yes, I can see it. I can see your whole PowerPoint. So if you want to
Okay.
hit the present mode, that might be better, but no problem if not.
Okay, present mode.
Like usually it's like view or under slideshow or under view.
Slideshow. And I'll do
Yeah.
from the beginning.
Yes.
There we go. How's that?
That's pretty good.
Okay. And then we'll see if we can move it. So today is the 18th. We've checked that off the box. I really felt like it was important for us to put this in context. This is more than you asked for or bargained for, but I don't believe, I think really it's helpful to understand that what we do in food security is part of a big picture of creating an accountable community for health. And, you know, this is meaning being accountable for the health and well-being of the entire population of a geographic area. And it's something that can't be done by one person, one organization, one or even two organizations. It's something that requires integration, and it requires a community-wide effort. And so Windsor HSA, which stands for Health Service Area, has a community collaborative and is acting as a accountable community for health. I wanted to show you what that means. It really means that we have intentionally looked at our community, and our goal and vision is that we have a community that's well nourished, hence food security, why we're here. Well housed, mentally healthy, physically healthy, financially secure, socially connected, and valued. You know, I'm gonna just jump to the fact that we use our community health needs assessment to determine what the health priorities are, and I'm going to shamelessly give a plug right now that you and a person near you is going to be getting the last time we did our community health needs assessment was 2018, and you're going to be getting a survey in the near future, and my plea is that you fill that out, because that's what helps us really understand the broad view of what the health needs are in the community. You'll see this honeycomb in front of your screen, and those are the different groups that we have formed as our accountable community for health to really work in teams. There's over 99 partners right now working together in each of these different areas, and we have formed work groups for housing, senior health, alcohol and substance misuse, and you can read them on the screen. But we're going to talk about food security today, and that's one of the work groups that we have formed. These are the health priorities that were determined at the last needs assessment, and you're not surprised by any of these. I think everybody that's in this Zoom can recognize the needs as presented here, and we have programs to address each of those in a collective impact way, to be able to work with our network to make a difference. This is the process we use. We took the community health needs assessment. We had summits. We worked in community mobilization mode, and we formed work groups, of which we have food insecurity on there. We've changed it to become strength-based of food security, and we're working together. Collective impact can be a buzzword. I'm just saying it brings people together in a structured way to achieve social change. And that's what we're very serious about, working together in this mode. It allows us to have a common agenda, do shared measurement, reinforce each other's activities with communication, and with a strong backbone of which Mount Ascutney serves to organize. And it takes us from common goals to uncommon requests. So you are probably one of those people, maybe the yellow one, maybe the pink one. But, you know, it takes all of us working together to do this. Food insecurity was recognized in our 2015 Community Health Needs Assessment. And at that time, what we did was we instituted screening in the pediatric clinic and by our community health team. This screening process helps us to be systematic in developing and identifying people with community health need, with food security needs, and they are referred to our community health team. They're also given a book, Eating Well on $4 a day. And the other thing that we did was we had our physicians write prescriptions for vegetables, and actually there's a pad which has the Veggie Van Gogh information on it. When we started in 2015, we started serving up to 250 families a month, and you'll see as we've continued to work, that number has raised, particularly in the COVID era. We work with Rise Vermont. Alice is our famous leader for Rise Vermont, and she's going to talk about building medical nutrition, working with the food shelves. So I'm not going to go into that in any depth. We started working in collaboration with the schools for a summer picnic series. And this was the first year. This was 2,500 meals served. We worked with providing community dinners, and we had a mini food shelf at the resource center. I want to give credit to the Woodstock area food assessment that was done. We were part of that, and you reached out to us around what we did for food security. And if people haven't seen this, want to see this, it was a great document that was done, and Michael was part of that through Sustainable Woodstock. OHF involved, the school district, the food shelf in Woodstock, the UU Church, and ourselves. So some good work in depth looking at what is the situation for food security in our region. We continued our work from that 2015 initiation with food insecurity, and the work was continued working with the schools. Last summer, no, the summer before that, we had food for, no, well, I'm losing it. I gotta stop for a minute, take a deep breath, and tell you that the work that we did in supporting the schools was when COVID hit. And they started bringing food to families when the families were being remotely served through the school. And there were 750 families that we were helping as volunteers to pack and distribute the food, working with the school. We work with Meals on Wheels and provide the volunteers that deliver the meals. And we had in COVID-19, amazing, and Alice and Nan can tell you, people just stepped up to the plate and said, we want to help and we're going to raise food. And we worked with the schools and the school nurses and the food shelves to be able to take those private funding donations and provide vouchers to local restaurants so that they could be supported in having, this treat, this ability to receive support from their neighbors and to improve their food security. Supported the food shelves with volunteers and food drives. One very cool thing, just saying, that there was an outreach that was done, and Michael, again, I want to underscore his role in this, did outreach linking farms to the food shelves for milk, eggs, and cheese. It was an amazing collaboration that was formed. And, one person can make a difference. And then when that one person is working with 2 and 3 and 4 and different agencies, that's an exponential difference that's made. And that's kind of the example of the accountable community for health. Facilitation of resources from the Vermont Food Bank. And I just will reference Veggie Van Gogh. It's an amazing experience, and Ginevra and anyone involved in that can tell you what it feels like to be able to connect with the people in their cars, to hand them, what did we have? We had melons, we had, potatoes, all sorts of different vegetables, and goodwill and support as we're going down the line. But that raised in number and volume in COVID from 257 to the average is 350 in August through when I did this February was actually 254 families because we had a snowstorm, but those volunteers were out there handing the food out, and the people were in their cars. Rise Vermont continues to work to promote gardens and medical nutrition, and Alice will talk about that. And we collaborate with Everyone Eats. I don't know if people are familiar with that program, but we deliver about 400. Well, it's been 400 meals for the last 4 months through Veggie Van Gogh. We deliver meals through Meals on Wheels and in the schools with Everyone Eats. And so the food security group, Alice and Nan will talk about, they stepped up to the plate as leadership. They organized themselves, each of the groups, and then I'll be quiet here. But I do want to say that each of the groups that forms in our, you remember that graphic of the honeycomb, has gone through a journey where they identify what's really the problem. They involve people that are affected by the problem. They take a journey down, what's the root cause that we actually want to address? And then from that root cause, select an aim statement. We then look at a best practice strategy, do research. What works? What's been proven to make a difference? And then we pre-establish an evaluation structure, which is based on results-based accountability. I say that because these work groups are serious about making a sustainable difference. And so we've gone through a serious process so that the actions that we take are not based on whims. They're based on a real collaborative process and a journey to make a difference for the long haul. So I do want to thank you for your patience in listening to me ramble. And I am available to answer any questions after, but I'll turn this over to Alice. And oh boy, how do I do that? Let's see. I got to stop sharing my screen, right?
Yes, you'll have to stop sharing your screen. Thank you so much, Jill.
How do I
Um,
get there? How do
it
I
should
get?
be if you go, if you, yeah, scroll over the Zoom and at the bottom there's a button in the very center, the Zoom window.
Okay, stop sharing. I'm
Yeah, there you
such
go.
an, yeah,
You did
phew,
it.
okay.
We'd be stuck looking at that slide. No,
Yeah,
thank you so much, Jill. And there was really great slides, and one in particular that listed a lot of really helpful resources from food shelves to Veggie Van Gogh. I mean, there are so many options. So thank you for sharing all that.
you're welcome.
And we'll go to questions at the end. But next up, we're doing a tag team presentation by Nan and Alice. So I'll just give a little bit about both you before you start. Nan Perizzo, Nan Kilmer Perizzo, I hope I did that well enough, is a volunteer with the Windsor Community Food Shelf. She's worked as an administrative assistant and purchasing agent for the food shelf and weekend lunchbox program for the last more than 10 years. She co-facilitates a faith and finance class through Trinity Church. She also serves on the Rise Vermont Windsor Steering Committee and co-chairs Mount Ascutney Hospital's Community Health Improvement Plan Food Security Work Group. So we have Nan, and then we have Alice. Alice Stewart is the Rise Vermont Program Manager for Mount Ascutney Hospital and Health Center. She also serves as the Grant Implementation Team Leader for the Mount Ascutney Prevention Partnership. Alice co-chairs the Food Security Work Group for Mount Ascutney's Hospital's Community Health Improvement Plan. She lives in Thetford, where she is a longtime member of the Thetford Energy Committee. Okay, I think that's all. I will let you two take it away. I'm not sure who's sharing their slides, but go right ahead.
I'm going to share the slides. This is Alice. If you give me a second, let's see if I can get them up there. Okay, yep. Hopefully I've succeeded. So Nan and I want to acknowledge that this photograph on the first slide has nothing to do with food security, but these are two boys whose family participated in the Rise Vermont at-home Olympics last spring during when COVID first started. And we just love this picture. So we thought we would share it with everybody because they just, it's filled with joy. And those kids are so cute. So let's talk a little bit about roles and service areas. So like a lot of people, I wear different hats, and with different hats come different service areas. So I'm the program manager for Rise Vermont based out of Mount Ascutney. Nan is on my Rise Vermont steering committee, and the service area for Rise Vermont at Mount Ascutney is the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union Town. So that's Windsor, West Windsor, Weathersfield, and Heartland. For the food security work group, Nan and I are the co-chairs, and that covers the same towns as Rise, plus the Windsor Central Supervisory Union towns, so that's the town of Woodstock, and then the surrounding towns like Reading and Pomfret and Bridgewater, and I'm not going to do the whole list because I'll get some of them wrong, and Hartford. So, excuse me. Nan and I decided that we were going to talk about two projects. The first one is a RISE project that relates to food security, and then the second one is a RISE potentially food security work group project. So this first one I'm talking about, Health on the Shelf. This project was designed to generate a sustainable supply of healthy foods for people that are trying to either prevent or manage a chronic illness. Because I think we all know that there are lots of people that go to food shelves who have diabetes, cancer, COPD, various other things, and they're often told to eat a specific diet, which may not be possible with the typical food shelf offerings. So we decided to partner with the area food shelves and do this collaborative process where we could figure out a way to provide them with the foods that their patrons wanted, and then to make it sustainable by recruiting local businesses, municipalities, and other organizations to adopt a month each year to do a healthy food drive. And then that way we would have this sustainable supply of these healthy foods. So in the 4 towns, there are actually 5 food shelves. The smallest one is only open an hour a week. The largest one is the one in Windsor where Nan works, and that's open 3 times a week, 3 weeks of the month. 2 of the food shelves get food from the food bank, 2 others get food from willing hands, but most of the food at these food shelves is either donated by town residents or purchased with donated funds. So, as I mentioned, the primary goal is this sustainable supply of healthy foods, but we have secondary goals. One is community education around nutrition, and the other one is building that accountable community for health mindset that Jill mentioned. So if you think about it, in an accountable community for health, we're all responsible and accountable for the health and wellness of everybody else within that community. And you can define community as small or as large. If you could sort of imagine, an accordion, right? So, maybe your community is your church or your bowling league or your school or your town. It can be whatever size it is. So in this case, we're looking at those Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union towns as an accountable community for health around this Health on the Shelf project. So we started in the fall of 2018. We got together with the food shelves and said, okay, if we're going to do this project, we want to start with a survey because, we don't want to force people to take food that they don't want. We want to find out what your patrons want in order to stay healthy. So each of the food shelves administered the survey, and I realize you can't read the writing because it's too small, but the green bar there is low sugar. So that was the most popular thing that people said they wanted, closely followed by whole grain, which is that yellowy orange color, and then the darker blue is low salt, and then the lighter blue down there is gluten-free. So last February, when COVID hit, we were in phase 2 of this project, and that was really about testing what's working, what's not working, so that we could apply a quality improvement approach. The idea was as we went to organizations and businesses and asked them to sponsor a food drive, we wanted to develop this menu of ideas that work so they could pick the ideas that fit their culture and how they're organized. So for instance, testing things that we've tested to generate donations are departmental champions, doing a competition to see who collects the most items, getting points for a company wellness program. To generate the needed donations and provide nutrition education, we've experimented with things like a shopping list and a food label with callouts, gift tags that have the needed food on them, and then theme months. And I'm going to show you some examples. So once again, realize you can't read this, but this is just to get the concept across. Imagine a half sheet of paper, and on one side is a shopping list by category of some items that are low sugar, some items that are low salt, some items that are gluten-free, etc. And then on the reverse side is a sample food label that actually helps people understand what is low salt. How many milligrams of sodium means low salt. For low sugar, same thing. How many grams of sugar is low sugar? For canned vegetables and fruits, what percentage daily value of certain vitamins should you be looking for so that there's actually some food value in what you're donating? Because there's a lot of canned things out there that if you look at them, basically don't have any food value. So this was an effort on our part to help people make those good choices when they were donating to the food shelf. This was relatively successful if you had a departmental champion that reminded people to use the shopping list. We could actually tell which departments had a good champion by what was in the basket, because there were some places where what was in the basket, none of it was on the list. It was all usable food, but none of it was on the list. The last test we did was the gift tree for Heart Health Month in February. We worked with the banks in Windsor and Heartland. There are no banks in the other towns because they're too small. But we did these gift trees, and here are photographs that our Vista Josh took of 2 of the trees. One of them is a conventional 3-foot tall Christmas tree, and the other one was this interesting metal Christmas tree that the Cindy Landerloo, the manager at the Mascoma Bank in Windsor, found for us. And we made these tags and we printed out all these things of items that were needed, and we actually got a pretty good response to this. We weren't sure it would work. It worked fairly well. We got most of the food that we got was food that we needed, and we got a fair amount of food. So we considered this a successful test. And then COVID hit. So our short-term outcomes, because this is on pause right now because of COVID, because most businesses don't have people in the business that could actually be coming in and donating food. But some short-term outcomes, the Windsor Food Shelf has changed its purchasing practices and now buys only no salt added canned vegetables and no sugar added pasta sauce, which is huge. And that was all due to Nan, because Nan's like, well, why should we be buying this other stuff? Like, let's buy this with the money that we have. And then we've had anecdotal reports from food drive donors that they've started reading labels. They find that finding low sodium and low sugar foods is challenging. So if it's challenging for them, it's probably really challenging for food shelf patrons that need these foods. And people are reevaluating what they're buying for themselves. So that was one of those secondary goals. So once COVID's over, we're hoping to reinstate the food drives, and we're going to get back and test a few more models. And then we're going to be recruiting more sponsors so that we can fully implement this adopt a month concept for sustainability, because we didn't get very far with that when we were first starting out. And if you're interested in helping with Health on the Shelf, you could advocate at your organization for it to be one of our Healthy Food Drive partners. You do not have to be located in one of our towns to sponsor a food drive that benefits those food shelves. You could do what Ginevra has suggested that she might do, which is you could say that you want to steal our idea and do it someplace else. And we are more than happy to share our resources and what we've learned if anybody wants to do that at a food shelf that's not in one of our core towns. And then you can look at the food labels for the items that you personally donate. If anybody wants to, my contact information's in here later, but I would be happy to email people one of those call out food labels that you can actually read, as opposed to the one on the slide that was a little bit too small and a little bit blurry because of the resolution. So now I'm going to turn it over to Nan.
Okay. So every year over the past few years, we've had people donate just starter plants and we've given them away. So last year we decided to kind of broaden that idea. So I went to Rise and I asked for an amplified grant, and they gave me a very nice grant, and we were able to create kits for people to take home. That, as you can see, was a 5-gallon bucket, watering cans, spades, soil, fertilizer, gloves. They had two vegetable plants and an herb plant. And we kind of went with this idea because we found that most of our patrons were renters. They couldn't do a traditional garden and tear up the yard of a landlord. So we thought, you know, this porch garden would be a great solution to get past that barrier. And this was a great program. We gave out 25 of these kits, and we could have done tons more. It was wonderful. They really loved it. And we were able to provide recipes for people to use so that they could have new ways of using the produce that they produced. We were lucky enough to be able to hook up with a local farm that did a 1-for-1. We bought a flat. They donated a flat for the starter plants, which was really great. So that really helped support the community also. All right. So then the next thing is we would have given away a lot more had we had more. It was a test pilot, but it was a really great experience, and I don't think anybody turned it away. It was one, if we asked if they'd like one, they took it. It was wonderful. And it was really neat to watch it come full circle, because we had people bringing in their excess produce to give back to the food shelf, to donate. And they were so proud of themselves. The pride of bringing that produce in and saying, I grew this and I want to give it back, was so valuable to them that it was really wonderful to see people experience that. So this year we are considering it as one of our CHIP food security group strategies. Not sure how that's going to go, but we're talking about it. But we'd like to expand it this year into at least one more food shelf, if not more. It's a great way to kind of fill in the gaps. We're looking for partners in the community, organizations, rec departments, libraries, who can get behind promoting this program and getting the word out. We're looking for a renewable, sustainable source for these kits. We're looking for local farms. We've talked about CSAs. We've talked about getting donations from local businesses, because we'd really like to expand on this, because it was such a positive program. We're also exploring other containers like the hanging gardens. I think it's hydroponics, because not everybody can bend down. You know, we have some elderly that maybe hanging would be better. So we're looking at other alternatives and providing additional recipes. And COVID really brought forth that there is a literacy issue. And as most of us are engaged in in these committees, we use a lot of printed handouts or flyers or written word. And we found that people can't always translate that. So we'd really like to do graphic instructions this year, so it's easier for people that have a lower literacy rate, because that's one more barrier that we'd like to hurdle. So we're really this is what our plan is. We're kind of looking at all our avenues. And what you can do to help us redo this garden project this year, share your ideas. If you have a way that you think we could do it better, how we can expand our reach, please let us know. If you have a contact with a local farm or a local business that would be interested in supporting this project or donating to it, please get us in contact or have them reach out. Because I think this is a really important. Gardening has so many positive aspects to it. To do it with your family, it can be very relaxing. Not just the food itself is healthy, but there's just so many positive things to gardening. So we'd really like more people to experience this. And if you have anyone that would like to donate, the information is on the slide. We'll make sure it's in the the chat later on. So if you have anyone who you'd like to send our way, please feel free.
So this is our wrap up so that we can give it back to Ginevra so we don't use up all the Q&A time, but just if anybody, I know some of the people on this call are already in the food security work group, but we are always open to new members. If anybody's interested, we meet via WebEx the second Tuesday of the month from 12:45 to 2:45. One of the things that the food security work group right now is doing is building awareness of food security resources while also trying to reduce stigma by framing our messages in a way that's hopefully not stigmatizing. And so we have several organizations who have signed up to share Facebook posts that we do. And if anybody's interested, let me know. And if you want to go see what we're doing, it's basically, like Nan said, we can put it in the chat, but we have a couple of posts, actually several posts up there that have been posted recently on the Rise Facebook page. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back to Ginevra.
I could be sharing this Facebook post from Sustainable Woodstock's account. So thank you for that call out, Alice. And yeah, thank you to Alice and Nan for that very comprehensive presentation. That was really great to get an overview of both of those programs. Yeah, thank you to all our speakers. I'm just looking right now in our chat. So please type questions you have here in the chat. If you're watching on Facebook, please type in the comments and we will ask those for you. There was one that was written that you responded to, Jill, but I think it would be good to also just do it so everyone hears the answer. We had a question, is Veggie Van Gogh operating all year?
Yes, it is. It's year round. We used to do it so that it was inside in the winter, but with COVID, we found that having the drive-through worked best, and especially for our elderly patrons who come through. They don't have to get out of the car. We will just put things in their back seat, in their trunk in the winter. But yes, every month, the second Tuesday of the month from 10 to 11, people start actually lining up at 9 o'clock in the morning, even though it starts at 10. But it works. It's well organized, a lot of goodwill, and great vegetables. I shouldn't say this, but I used to work, volunteer at a food shelf, and we had veggies, to give out. And I used to beg and give vegetables and so on. That's changed with Nan in charge of the food shelf. But I remember having to really try to do the hard sell to get people to take vegetables. At Veggie Van Gogh, there is such joy in accepting vegetables, and it really makes you understand that you're part of a healthy movement to promote health. So there's more than you ask for, but it's year round.
That's great. Thank you, Jill. And I'll just say, because I also do work with Veggie Van Gogh, that it's open to anyone. There are no restrictions on anything. And that it might be closed for the month if it's the middle of a snowstorm, like a really bad one, but usually I've never missed one yet. So thank you for posting contact information in here, Alice. That's helpful. And also the link to the Facebook page. So what are things that folks can do to assist with improving food security in the Upper Valley region? I suppose that's for all of you.
So, I think there's a full range of things that can be done. A lot of it is in the volunteer vein. Would you like to volunteer to work at a food shelf? Would you like to volunteer to do a food drive for a food shelf? Would you like to join the food security work group? That's really working together for collective impact and have a stronger impact. There's opportunities to be a Meals on Wheels driver. There's opportunities to work with the schools. So I think, if you have an interest, depending on what, your passion is, we can find a place for you. So don't hesitate to reach out.
I don't know if Nan or Alice want to contribute anything to that. It was a very good summary, Jill. Thank you.
Yeah, it was an excellent summary. And I would say just the idea of, food shelves always need more resources, especially now. And so whether it's you just buying some extra things at the grocery store, or you actually trying to get your organization to make a donation or to do a food drive, no matter what food shelf you give it to, it's going to help. I will say that my experience, like I used to work at the Dartmouth Institute, and people always tend to look at the Haven and say, oh, let's do a food drive for the Haven. And I'm not knocking the Haven. The Haven is awesome, but the small, community-based food shelves often are very under-resourced, and the Haven gives them things when they have extras and things like that. But a lot of times people kind of forget about the food shelves in the smaller towns. And so I think anytime that you can do something to help out one of those food shelves, you're really making a big contribution.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just curious, also following up on your presentation, Alice and Nan, in terms of things that people should buy to donate to food shelves. I know that you have those really awesome kind of like cards. Does those exist anywhere online, or is there a resource online? Should people contact the food shelf? Like, how can we know what the best things are to donate?
We get calls, or I get emails. People ask me, what do you need? Because I take a roving inventory, so I'm always like trying to think a month out or so. So you can always call, shoot an email. There's always things like, you could always do peanut butter, sugar-free pasta, any vegetable, any canned item right now, or canned meat, especially beans. We can't get protein. It's on the shelf fast enough.
Mm.
And one other thing that we found with the health on a shelf drive is, like Ensure, our elderly people cannot afford it, and they loved getting the Ensure. They loved it. We could not keep it around. If you don't know what to buy, that is a great item to get on the shelves.
That's very helpful. I feel like there is like a set number of items people think of, like, oh, boxed Kraft mac and cheese, and then
or ramen noodles. Don't do it.
Yeah. But I would never think of Ensure, so that's really helpful.
And don't forget organic. There are people out there with, because a lot of times people think, oh, people that go to food shelves don't eat organic. I have to tell you, that is not true. There are people with, particular medical conditions where they really want the organic things. And so for people like that, when that's available, they feel so much better when they're able to get it. I'm thinking in particular of somebody that I talked to at the Heartland Food Shelf when I was there. And I also want to reinforce what Nan said. Ensure and Boost. When we were unpacking the things at the Heartland Food Shelf, we had people coming over and saying, can I take that? Like, they were just so amazed, because I guess it never gets donated. And, they're supposed to drink one of them a day. And those things are so expensive.
Yeah. I wouldn't have guessed. There's a comment here. Several of us here are part of the Upper Valley Strong Food Subcommittee. UVS has funding to support community needs related to the pandemic. Please get in touch if we might be able to help. And it's got the email with it. So not really a question, but you've got the email now. So that's a great connection. And also someone from Willing Hands talking about operating year round, fresh produce, dairy, eggs to partner organizations in the Upper Valley. So another good partner, definitely. Checking our Facebook. I don't know that we have any other questions coming in. I'll just keep going asking my own. Oh, how would you recommend approaching someone who may benefit from accessing food shelf assistance, but has not done so before and is reluctant to take that step?
So that's one of the things we're trying to do with those fake Facebook posts that I mentioned very, very briefly, is we're trying to demystify the food resources out there, because we know that there are a lot of people new to food insecurity. And so, like, we did a Veggie Van Gogh post, that was like step 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's how you access it. And we're trying to do similar things with the different food shelves. We've been doing highlights on community volunteers that work at the food shelves. Like the post that went up today was a recipe of things that you could make with food that you could get at the Windsor food shelf. We've been, doing posts. Actually, at the food shelf in Windsor, they did this little video when they had gone back to inside in the middle of COVID, when that was safe, like showing people how it worked when you come to the food shelf. And I think Woodstock Food Shelf was also working on a video. So That's not exactly an answer of how you would recommend approaching someone, but it is something that the food shelves and the other organizations are working on to try to help remove some of the barriers, the anxiety, the just not knowing what it's like, so that people feel more comfortable going there. We also have seen that the curbside approach is a lot more comfortable for a lot of people, not having to get out of their car and go inside, and being able to stop and pick things up both from Veggie Van Gogh and from the food shelves is something that seems to work better for some people.
The other thing is Alice and Nan have done a really good job using the principles and the marketing principles in the food shelves for destigmatizing the food shelves, and they've attacked it from a strength-based approach. And I don't know, Nan or Alice, if you want to talk a little about some of the phrases that you use specifically, to change it from "do you need food," or from a need approach to kind of a strength-based approach where we all need healthy food. And COVID has affected the whole community. I don't know, Nan or Alice, if you want to just talk a little bit more about that.
So Alice and I were able to go to a conference, and they brought about this really great message framing principle. And we kind of looked at it and we're like, oh, words we thought were okay really weren't. They were creating anxiety, shame, and we use them all the time and never thought anything of it. So we have been working on doing all our media campaign and postings around this message framing, telling a story of us. Not that you need food, but we all need food. That we are all in this together. So we're kind of reframing how we're talking about it, so that people are more willing to come forward and just feel embraced by the wording and not shunned. Does that sum it up, Alice?
Yeah, I think so. And like one of the we've been trying to use the wording instead of everybody, if you need food, it's more like anybody who's trying to stretch their food budget. Like when we're talking about like Veggie Van Gogh, that was how we explained the eligibility. It's like anybody who's trying to stretch their food budget, because that might feel more comfortable to somebody. And going back to the question earlier about approaching somebody who's never accessed one of those resources, I would offer to go with them. Once again, hard in COVID, like, do you want to get in a car with somebody and all those kinds of things? But I mean, I think that's actually one of the simpler ways is go with them, so they don't feel like they're by themselves. And sometimes people are more comfortable going to access a food resource that's not in their town, that's someplace else where they're not known. So that's another thing, is just suggesting resources, places like the Haven and things like that, where that serve people from around the region where they might be more comfortable going.
Thank you for that. That's really interesting, that wording aspect. And I was going to follow up by asking, you get a lot of people who say, I'm not the neediest person. There are people who are more needy, so they should access it, not me. So that kind of relates to that. Yeah, thank you for that. Question for Nan about the recipes and literacy. Do you find that those people have access to reliable devices and internet? Would cooking videos be helpful, or is using more low-tech options the most useful?
Okay. Well, we have a pilot program that we are rolling out for the Windsor Food Shelf. It is a monitor that would have messaging created for it, so it'd be audio and visual. This is a new pilot program to kind of get away from handing out flyers. We will do different messaging, whether it's videos for cooking or, healthy nutrition. So we're still setting up the monitors and all that through a grant that we got to help with the literacy issue and breaking that barrier. So we can do types of demonstrations and things over the monitors.
And that's going to be inside the actual food shelf.
It will, once we come back inside. That was the goal pre-COVID. That was one of the barriers we had. COVID really messed everybody up. So, but we would be able to do those kinds of messaging.
Yeah, and Nan and I had a really interesting phone call a few months ago. So we went on to Rural Health Info, I think is what it's called. Basically it's a US government site, but it has programs that have actually been vetted in rural areas, because I don't know how many of you know this, but a lot of things, when they test them out, they test them in urban settings and they don't translate. You just can't translate them to where we are. They don't work. So I always like to go there. And we found this woman in, help me out here, Nan, was she in Ohio?
Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio, I think. And she had done things that were similar to what we were thinking about and some different ones. So we spent about an hour and a half on the phone with her. And one of the things she'd been experimenting with was cooking classes for people that visit food shelves, and which ones worked and which ones didn't. And so we are very intrigued by the things that she told us, and we would really like to get a project started with a couple of the local libraries. It was interesting, I heard Kat Buxton's name mentioned earlier, because Kat Buxton was one of the people I wanted to get involved because of her composting expertise. But we really wanted to have maybe a series that brings together a bunch of partners that takes people, from, planting seeds all the way through preserving food at the end and composting but incorporate the cooking as part of that. So like growing produce and learning how to cook it. And so, we have been gathering some information about what people might want to do. And we've talked about the idea of maybe doing some focus groups with people at the Windsor and Woodstock food shelves to find out more about what would be helpful to them. So, they might say, no, they wouldn't want a live cooking class, but they'd like the videos. And so going to that idea that was posted in the chat, I think it's one of those things that we're exploring a little bit more. So we've been researching. We haven't quite figured out exactly what we want to do around the cooking class idea.
And we'd really like to involve the people that this affects, the people that live these experiences. We want their input before we say, oh, we've got the solution, because we really don't. So we really want to get that feedback before we start rolling out any type of project.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm excited going back to the screen you're going to have. I'm excited to hear the feedback from that once you get people going in the food shelf.
Yeah.
I've got a question here, and I suppose it can apply to any of these programs we're talking about. Do you put your messaging on Windsor On Air? And I'm going to confess, I don't know what Windsor On Air is. Is it a radio station?
It's the local access TV station.
Oh, okay.
And that's a great question, Chuck. And we haven't been, although we have talked about some things. So yeah, some of the Facebook messaging that we're doing, we could certainly put that together and ask Paula at Windsor On Air to run it. So I think right now it's a matter of bandwidth. Our intern went back to school. So we had this awesome intern who really helped us with a lot of the Facebook work that we've been doing and created a lot of templates for us. So now that it's we can sort of push it out without having the extra hands, but we're hoping to get another intern soon. So thanks for the suggestion, Chuck. Yes.
Yeah, and Chuck has followed up. When was at, I'm not sure what you, sorry, Chuck. Something about when was it at the resource center, found that lots of seniors watch local access faithfully. When he was at the resource center. Oh, okay. So lots of seniors watch local access faithfully. Yeah, I mean, maybe that, yeah, I didn't even know what it was, to be honest. So yeah, maybe like, different populations are more tuned into it. I'm scanning to make sure we got all these questions. There's a thank you to you all in here. Yeah, it's almost, oh yeah, thank you. Really appreciate being made aware of the community programs. Yeah, please spread the word about these programs to people you know. And I'll be sending follow-up info if you have questions for any of our presenters or follow-up if you want to get involved in any of these programs. But we don't have any more questions coming in. I see Michael popping on. Did you have something you want to say, Michael?
No, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone. That was really a great presentation. There's always something to learn about providing the things that people need. And I learned some things this evening as well. So that's just kind of the way it is. And when it comes down to the basic essentials, there's so many facets to it. And I really appreciate how you covered the logistics, the human element, the sensitive issues about how do you approach people and help to encourage them to take advantage of what they might need that might be reluctant to do so. When we did the Grow Your Own Garden program last year, it was really striking because COVID had hit about 2 months earlier, and we had we had a live program where people were coming in on one day, 50 different families, and picking up their seedlings and tools and everything. And there was a complete range, socioeconomic range of people who were driving up, and people that had just completely lost their income 2 months ago. And most families often live 1 or 2 months ahead of payments, and all of a sudden, some people who I have known for years who have never struggled were driving up and getting garden things because they wouldn't have been able to afford to plant it that year. So I'm glad you mentioned the impacts of COVID, because it's been really profound. And with the food, the needs for food going up 30-40% in some areas, and consistently. And we're already finding that demand is still there in so many different ways, because we're trying to get grow your own garden off the ground again this year. And our providers are saying that they're already having problems getting seeds, tools, and all those things. So we're not out of the woods in terms of the additional food security issues related to COVID by any means yet. And I think that that's going to have a very long tail going into additional years because of the situations that it put people in. Hopefully the good side is that people have seen that there are so many other options out there, and we're doing the kinds of work that you all are doing is helping to create a foundation for more long-term food security for people. So it's just really great work, and thanks for doing it.
Thank you, Michael.
I am not on, at least I'm not on mute. Sometimes I go off on these spiels and somebody says, "You've been on mute for 5 minutes."
Let me just let you know.
Okay.
Well, I'm really glad you spoke up, Michael, because I was going to put you on the spot to talk about your program, because it did have a big impact, and you really were one of the the inspiration that we took in before we started the program in Windsor. So I just want to recognize, and there's a lot of people on the line here today that are doing their part. And you can see that from the Upper Valley Strong. You can see that from the Haven is amazing. What they do, you can see it from the comments of Willing Hands. I mean, we actually, when you think about our region, people have stepped up to the plate in so many different ways, because it's not a one thing answer, it's an everyone answer, and it's people getting involved in different aspects. So I think it's very cool that you set this up and that we could be together to have this conversation and recognize like everybody's part for this.
And we're very grateful to the three of you for joining us. So thank you very much. I know we're almost at 6:30.
It's time to go have dinner.
Yeah, speaking of food, yeah. So thank you all.